Good morning. Today is a very exciting day because it's really the first time I've made a video that really has the active intention of sharing a really common coaching scenario that I face with clients who contact me. And I get to combine my visual art with that explanation. So this is based on a question and a situation that actually came up twice in the last week with two different clients. They're both doctors, but it really doesn't matter what their specific profession is. Just imagine anyone, maybe like you, who has invested a lot of years, a lot of time, a lot of capital in the form of not only money, but what I'll call identity capital, meaning an investment in who you are to become something. And then they reach a point on that journey where really it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. Things are not as they were presented. The reality is not matching the story. So I came up with this piece. I'm going to practice holding it so you can see it. And I know you can't see this small writing, but I'm going to be going through that. What I want you to see in this visual is just the overall big picture. And imagine you standing right here. You're on a certain path, you're facing a certain direction, and you reach a crossroads and you're asking questions. So there's an open space and you can choose certain paths. And to really capture the choice point that's facing these clients, and maybe you also, I'm presenting this model that I want to give credit to the artist and author Elle Luna for her book, The Crossroads of Should and Must. And she has a hashtag Choose Must campaign on social media that you can look up. And she's an artist and has written a book about making this choice. So I have actually added to her model can. So my crossroads is the crossroads of can, should, and must. And I'll go in that order. So here's the situation. You've invested in this identity. You're as far as you are into it. Maybe you're done with your training. You're doing this thing, but it just doesn't feel right. You're in the wrong life somehow. So can is basically your current 100%. We all operate at a current level of 100%, which is what we believe is possible. That's based on what we already know how to do, what we've had as our past experience, meaning ourselves or what we've seen other people do, and what's proven. So this comes from really the rational mind having proof of what can be done. That's the can route. So people with a lot of professional training, actually this is a big dilemma because this can route is like most people's stretch goal. And so the response to like wanting to go deviate from the can is like, why would you ever throw that away? Like I couldn't even imagine achieving that ever in my life. Why would you walk away from it? That kind of thing. So that's kind of the pull and the dilemma with being somebody with a lot of can capacity, which has been developed in the absence of soul connection or desire. Believe me, it's possible. You can do a lot of achieving in the absence of true desire, and this point of kind of questioning is about the emptiness of all that achievement and the lack of purpose for all that work. So these are capable people, and you are too. Everybody has a path of can. It's what you know you can do. So then the should path is we all have a set of internal rules that we either made up or we adopted from the people in our lives that we took to be authority figures, parents, teachers, cultural leaders, religious leaders, societal figures, whoever. So we have our set of internal rules that we're behaving by. And usually, if we feel stuck or constrained by those rules, it's because we're satisfying others. by following those rules. The social order, the community, the tribe depends on us to follow those internal rules. We also have an image and an identity that's upheld by following those rules. So we have what looks good. And this is sort of the Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner thing for me, which is, the Bruce Jenner image was based on being a world champion athlete at the pinnacle level of the Olympics. Not only the Olympics, but decathlon. I mean, imagine that. And then at crossing, and that's a big should, because it's like, whoa, what do athletes, is it defined in America starting in the 1970s, what should they look like? And he shows us through this transition, in my view, that we've all bought into some idea of what looks good, and it may not be the truth. And that when he steps into a new truth about himself, the others, we, the outsiders, have to really look at what were the rules, what were we expecting of him that he's not fulfilling anymore, now that he's not lying anymore. And that's our problem. And he's got his own journey, and he's chosen to step into the truth of that, and the rest of us have to deal with our reaction to it. So usually the should is based on not disappointing other people, because the rules build up an expectation in our world. Everyone around us in our social interactions starts to form some kind of understanding about us based on the rules that we've chosen to follow. And a lot of times these rules are things that we never realized that we could change our mind about or adjust according to our reality and experience. And I'll say that this time of change on the planet, I experience as being a time when so many of the rules that have worked for seemingly a long time, maybe 2 generations, just are not applicable anymore. They're not working in the same way anymore. They're not serving us in the same way. So people like physicians who have been bound to a set of rules and are very good at following them because they're good students, again, the achievement route, this is a very difficult thing to look at and see that, whoa, I created this situation simply by believing in this set of rules. So to change it, my responsibility is to know which rules I'm following and choose which rules still apply and which ones I'm willing to break to go in another direction. So the third path on here is over here coming off the page. And if you notice that can and should, you can see a horizon. You can see in the distance even some sort of outcome that is at least in front of you and visible. Even if it's not palatable, it's known in terms of visible because it comes from known reality and what's been done in the past. The must route, and I just want to make sure that we define this in the way that is consistent with this model. Must is not just another version of should. So it's not a rule coming from outside, and it's not going to really satisfy anyone else. But it may be the only path that satisfies you, your soul, your desire, your heart. So must, I don't want you to think of like a teacher or your parent telling you that you must do this. It's more of an internal call, a tugging at your restlessness of your soul inside saying you must do this, even though it might seem completely crazy and it might involve you actually turning around in a direction that you perceive as going backwards or away from where you're supposed to go. Out here, supposed to is really from the should. And it's a winding path. So it's not a straight line. And you cannot see from the direction you're pointing now where this leads. But the must path is about not what looks good, but what feels good. And I'm not talking about pleasure, just temporary pleasure here. I'm talking about soul feeling, whole body knowing, feeling really good, the joy feeling. And that's a feeling that a lot of us actually have to take some time and effort to awaken and allow ourselves to feel again, because it's so unfamiliar. We have put it so far away that we don't even know what it is. And it's there, but it's there. This is about not our current 100%, like that's like what I know I can do, but this is about playing at 125%. What does that mean? Okay, for you type A physician types, it does not mean pushing yourself beyond what is healthy, which we're used to doing in our training. We're actually asked to do that consistently as part of the quote-unquote hazing to prove that we're good enough. So I'm not talking about that here. I'm talking about stretching beyond your current reality. So your current reality might actually say, that's the only way you get anywhere in life, is by pushing yourself beyond what is healthy and honoring to your body and your spirit. That's a belief system. That's your current 100%. So that's the reality you live in. So maybe playing at 125 for you means maybe I actually choose to live a life of ease and prosperity and service. And that all of those things are possible when I stretch my box to include all of those things as my definition of thriving. And I turn in that direction. And notice that that might actually mean turning your back on the old way, the can. It also involves learning new skills. So what you have been able to do in the past is great. And it may not be what carries you toward your heart's calling. So this is a big one for me, where I've had a lot of past, achievements and identities around doing certain things, playing music, being a good student, stepping up and doing a lot of work and for other people. And what I'm realizing is my must includes creative time, which is a lot of solitude and a lot of nature and space and contemplation and silence, which for most of my life, or I'd say 35 years of my life, I never knew how to give to myself. And totally new skills like art making. I mean, this is a totally new area of my life that I'm realizing I love and I'm naturally curious about, and I naturally experiment with things and I naturally learn with no one telling me to do it. So when I allow myself to actually follow the pull of the must, that's what I'm doing. And for me, the discipline is to honor that, because there's a lot of can and a lot of should going on. The other thing I want to say about the path of must is that there will be failures on the way to success. So these can and should routes are typically based on a fixed definition of success that involves climbing a ladder, following others, and getting validation and approval constantly from others, because it's based on this set of rules that other people define for success. So as you actually turn toward must, it's the path of creating your own definition of success, which means creating, which involves what we would call changes of direction. Creative U-turns is what Julia Cameron calls it. Failures, you can call it that, but there's a lot of judgment around that. And I've learned to really embrace failure as a really good sign that I'm truly moving in new directions. And as long as I don't allow these ideas of failure to stop me from continually practicing and going forward and keeping my vision facing toward my heart's desire and that definition of success that I'm building for myself, there's nothing about failure means anything about who I am as a person, contrary to what we're taught, again, in school or from social systems that assign identity value to achievement and failure. And finally, here's the thing that keeps us dead in our tracks, and this is why clients come to me. It's, that must involves doing something, no matter how small, that is what you cannot know now. So I love the Eleanor Roosevelt quote that you gain strength and confidence through every time you look fear in the face and do it anyway. You must do the thing you think you cannot do. That's the must. Really, in a nutshell, it's the thing you think you cannot do. So can, past achievement, current reality, what we've proven to ourselves keeps us locked on that path facing in this direction. Should keeps us locked in the path of pleasing others, meeting our own set of internal rules that are fixed and may not be even valid anymore. They worked at one time for someone else or for you at an earlier time in your life, but no longer. But must is about doing the thing you think you cannot do. And actually, if it occurs to you in your thought, like, I can't do that, that's actually, in my experience, a really good hint, a clue at exactly what you must be doing now. Because that objection, that thought, oh, I can't do that, actually comes from this can and should thing. Like that's kind of the lock, the GPS that keeps you pointed away. It's that thought, you can't do that, I can't do that. But actually, if we dive in and lean in and investigate and become very curious about what's inside that thought, what feeling is wanting to be felt that might be off limits, what new skill is asking to be learned, what stretch by playing at 125 can we actually allow by entertaining that thought. It's all very exciting. So this is my first visual art attempt at putting into picture form this very common dilemma that you may be facing in your life. And if you want to talk to me about coaching, you can visit my website and contact me there. And I hope you have an awesome